One of my mentors, when I was fresh out of grad school, said, you have to always reinvent yourself when there's something new, because that's the only time you can become an expert. So I was a regulator at the time, so when the Bank Secrecy Act was brand new, I threw myself at that act, because you know what? We were the experts because we were the first responders. When Dodd-Frank came, I'm like, okay, let's throw ourselves at Dodd-Frank. No one knows it, right? When FinTech came, we're like, you better throw yourself at that because you have a lot of opportunities. And when you think about digitization today, right, there's a need for ethics in using data appropriately. There's a need to make sure that humans do not overly rely on technology to discern what is best for a customer.
And you know what we're finding is the robo-advisor companies are now hiring financial planners so that they can talk to people as humans. And that's the part we forget. You know, that one-on-one connection that we make when someone is struggling with their financial situation, to be able to connect with you and see you see them. And I consider that disruptive, because I think in a time when we're saying that technology is everything, we're forgetting that it's not everything.
I think about technology, services, ideas that really change things in more of a step change way, not an evolution, not an incremental improvement, but really just changing the way we think about things. So from a business perspective, you know, a new product development, that's not just making the next version of the iPhone. It's the original point when we created the category of smartphones. And it's not just, you know, making your company or your industry more efficient. It's creating an entirely new business model.
After I got done with law school about 10 years ago, I had been reading so much that I was sort of sick of reading. And I stopped reading in long form for like a couple of years, whereas I had always been a voracious reader. And a few years ago, I came back to really reading long form books, long articles, and I would say being able to think through sort of complex ideas developed slowly over time, which is so different than so much of what I consume day to day, whether it's on Twitter or kind of work memos that are a paragraph long and all I need is like the action item out of it. To put change, which can be scary and upsetting, into the context. So I've used it a lot with the current Trump era, where I need to think about how this fits into American history to grapple with it.
You know, we say things like change is hard, and we make comments like that when the fact is the only thing that is constant is change. Change is happening around us and in us all the time.
Finding something that's a really good fit for both your capabilities, but really more your interests, because I think the capabilities come with it when you're super passionate about something. I think that's where the real opportunity is.
If you're in a corporation, there's a concept of entrepreneurs, right? So you can actually be an entrepreneur within your company, right? I happen to work for a very large company and have some concepts. So our team we're entrepreneurs, right? And you know, you walk in and we all have our little areas like it's our storefront. But you have opportunities to contribute to strategic directions internally. If there was a small or large firm, don't lose sight of the fact that if you're working on day-to-day matters, you clearly have full authority to know what could be better.
I'm in a lot of meetings right now where I'm the only woman in the room. I'm used to that. It's not a huge deal. But I definitely notice, to your point, when the people with more authority, or if I'm the only woman in the room, the men look at me and say, like, we want to hear what you have to say now, and take active steps to make sure that I feel empowered. I try to do that in separate contexts. So that's one thing, sort of paying attention.
Look at the needs in your community and think about everything you can do to serve that community and make your day-to-day life better. It doesn't have to be these Herculean, brilliant ideas that change the world, like it could be incremental improvements that just gives people a quality of life.
Something that we can do, you know, to really make sure that we are being thoughtful and mindful about our individual impact and our collective impact, so that as we're in this disruptive time, we don't leave each other behind.
I find it so interesting that we're talking about disruption in 2018 here in San Francisco at an institution that was founded actually in 1901, but our roots go back to the Gold Rush era. But we began Golden Gate University as a set of courses and practical skill training at the YMCAs. And that movement was all about a movement, a social movement, that was about helping people deal with post-industrial, people, families, communities, about post-industrial disruption. And so here we are 150 years later, talking about disruption and talking about change. And as was our panelists reminded us, change is constant. And I think that connection illustrates that point.